Welcome to Season 3 of Pod Practice with Team USA player Quinn, Team USA Grandmaster player Mikey Lunn, and myself, Alex Atkins. You can now find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and anywhere you listen to your podcasts. We want to keep growing the Pod Practice community, so reach out to us with your thoughts on IG and YouTube at podpractice_pod, or email us at show@podpracticepod.com. I hope you enjoyed the episode.
Maybe this is all just a ploy for you to share your email with people.
Everybody send Mike nudes.
We are back with Jacob Miller and Braden Eberhard with a very special episode here talking about data, analytics, statistics around the UFA. With their, I guess, is company the right word to use?
We call it a passion project usually.
Passion project, shown space. Braden and Jacob, I'm calling you both data scientists or ML engineers. And I guess before we get going and I ask you more in-depth questions about your backgrounds, congratulations to Jacob on being a new dad. And I see you're already back in the office, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry you have to suffer through that already.
Honestly, I get more sleep now that I'm working than I did when I was on leave. So I feel bad for Kendra now. I have more sleep now, so it's nice.
Well, there's a silver lining to everything, but poor Kendra, I suppose. Yeah. But anyway, welcome, guys. Thank you for being here. How's it going?
Yeah, feeling good. Happy to chat math. Happy to chat ultimate Frisbee stats as much as we can.
So I guess before we jump into the actual shown space stuff, both of you are ultimate players. Both of you play for our in-division rival, one of our in-division rivals at least, the Salt Lake Shred. And we'll be in town in Denver Golden tomorrow. So we'll see each other in person tomorrow. Do you guys Jacob, maybe I'll start with you. Do you want to just briefly talk about your background in Frisbee? And if you want to touch on the data side of things too, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah. I'll make it quick. So I grew up outside of Boise, Idaho, and basically just played basketball my whole life. My best friend tore his ACL for the third time in club basketball, and his mom wouldn't let him play any real sports after that. And we were at a neighboring school half day to take some like AP class together. And on the announcements, we heard like Ultimate Frisbee tryouts. He was like, dude, let's go out and do that. I could actually play that. Sounds like fun. And I said no, but he dragged me out. And that was our sophomore year. And we loved it. My basketball coaches hated that I played it, but it was a good time. So we made a team at our school the next year and then ended up playing at BYU. And since then have kind of like bounced around on club teams. Of course, like the first year I played AUDL UFA was on the Spiders in 2021. Kerr and I flew out and did that together that season, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Nice. Braden, how about you?
Yeah, I also started in high school and played there, and then Jacob and I met at BYU. He had just gotten back from his mission, and he played a year before his mission, and then started playing on the college team afterwards. And I had gotten back from mine, so we played together at BYU, capped him a little bit. And then my first year in the AUD UFA was in Boston. I played with the Boston Glory. And then after that first year, I tore my ACL playing against the Empire in New York. And then the next year, Utah had a team, and I was like, man, that seems like fun. So I worked out, and I still currently work out in Boston, my workspace there, but it's remote. So during the summers, I've come back. Jake and I also coached the Utah Swarm team a couple of years in 22 and 23 as well. So
nice. Were any of those championship years?
Yeah, they both were.
I was gonna say both of them.
Yeah.
And now you're playing with. Isn't DeMorgan? Did you guys coach DeMorgan then too?
Yeah.
And now you're playing with him. That's cool.
That little
It's-
scumbag.
Yeah, he's such a little shit, man.
He's good. He's good.
He's good.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest reasons I came back this year is because there are 6 players in the shred that all were on that team. So it's been fun to watch them grow up and
6.
Okay,
Okay, cool.
graduate, go play college, go play Team USA, come play with us. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
been sick to
totally.
watch the youth scene in Utah just kind of explode and like kind of out of nowhere. It seemed like to everybody else, I bet, but like for you guys probably not. But to us, seemingly out of nowhere in like the last couple of years, which has been really cool.
Yeah, it's been fun to be a part of for sure.
Cool. Should we get into the meat of things? Like, can you tell us a little bit about what Shown Space is, and maybe like what the evolution was, and what this whole soup to nuts process of starting it?
Soup to nuts.
Yeah, I don't even know how far back you want to go, Braden, but how do you start?
Take us back.
Yeah. Let's see. So we've both obviously been interested in this. There's a lot of people in Ultimate that are very, very smart and very data-y, very software engineer-y. There's obviously been stuff out there before, but everything has to be a passion project, and you just spend a lot of time doing it. The first thing that happened was like one time Braden and I were like, well, let's look into some stuff. And we got into the AUDL at the Times API, and just parsing it was more difficult than you think it's going to be. And that's with every data project, right? You pull in data and you're like, oh, this is more messy than I was hoping. And we kind of didn't touch it for a little while. And we had plans to kind of like go through it together, but it's just time intensive. And we were both still undergraduates at the time, I think. And then we went our separate ways. Braden went out to Boston, was working at the Harvard Medical School's hospital, and then I was in grad school doing stats. And during that time, I started like the little like blog, I guess you could say. It's like I called it Analysis by Comet, and it was fun to do. It was just like download the data, do an analysis, spend way too long messing with the visuals, and then put it out. And then Braden, I don't know, Braden, you can go in and talk about this, but randomly this last, when was it? I don't even know, September, October?
Yeah, something like that.
You asked me if you were like, hey, what if we like wrote a paper? Like, what if we actually published a paper? There's been one paper, I believe, maybe we're wrong, but published by Weiss and Childers from 2014, I think. And but Braden was like, what if we went and presented at sports analytics stuff? Like, I love sports analytics. I've spent way too much time interviewing with teams and almost but not getting jobs with teams. Like, so working on this stuff is like really fun for me. And Braden's like, what sports analytics conferences could we go to? And I was like, well, the biggest one is Sloan at MIT.
You got into the mecca.
Right. And so Braden was like, let's just try and submit an abstract. Braden, I'll let you go from there.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think you were the one who was like, oh, let's just submit an abstract and see what happens. Because when I reached out to him, it was a week before the deadline for the abstract. So we literally had like a week to put everything together. And it was honestly pretty lucky that we had, touch and go for the past like 3 years been working with the data. So we already had some code to clean the data. We already had some ideas for projects and things like that. But I reached out to him. I was like, hey, he's a lot more into the sports world than I am. So I wanted to see what his thoughts were on that. He's like, let's just submit an abstract and see what happens. So we did. We spent way too much time that week putting together like a real project from start to finish and conceptualizing exactly what the full like narrative, full story would be. And we just like threw it in the hat and we're like, whatever happens, happens, And then a couple of weeks later, they're like, hey, we like your project. Go ahead and like write out a full paper for us. And so over the next month or so, we wrote the paper. Kendra was pregnant at this point, and it was early on, so I had no idea. And I was like, Jacob, you got to help me out with this. And then I remember jumping we were on a Zoom call. Was it on Thanksgiving or was it on like the day after Thanksgiving or something like that?
Black Friday, yeah.
Yeah. So the day after Thanksgiving, he was they were all with her family, I was with my family, and we spent like 3 or 4 hours just talking about this and finishing up our final paper because for whatever reason they put the due date for the final papers during the Thanksgiving holiday. And then we submitted that, and they were like, "Hey, we really like your paper. Like, will you come and present?" So we ended up being a finalist, and then we showed up at the conference in March, and we gave our presentation. They ended up liking it again, so we got a second place prize. And after that point, we're like, "This is cool stuff. Like, it's been a lot of fun. Let's see if we can do something real with it. Take it from the academic world, writing papers about it, to can we take this and like make it real, make it so teams can use it, so players can use it, so the UFA can use it." And since then, that's kind of what we've been working on, developing like a real website. And neither of us are real software developers or real professionals in that manner. And not only that, but we both have our full-time jobs, so it's on the side. But we've been doing our best to put out like a real product that people can, do with whatever they please.
That's so cool. I want to ask you briefly about the Sloan conference itself. Like, were there some heavy hitters there that you recognized or like met? What was it like? What was the atmosphere like?
I mean, yeah, in terms of the other research papers, like very smart people, and some impressive presenters, but like the Sloan conference is less academic than most conferences, I would say, and more commercial. So Daryl Morey organizes the conference, and like I would say a handful of big sports GMs are there as like appearances, and like Woj is doing a panel, and Andrew Luck is doing a panel, and all the sports betting have like their CEOs there, and they're all speaking. And so like it's cool to hear them talk, but the substance is like a little bit fluffy. And but so like really cool experience. Like one of the panelists that was a judge for our presentation was Brian Burke, who's like the godfather of football analytics. He's one of the ones who like wrote one of those original blogs that then he was hired by ESPN, has been there for a long time. And so like that for me was like, a weird, like surreal moment to be like having him ask us questions and judge us on our work. So it was really cool in that way, but definitely commercial, I would say.
Were you nervous?
Funny. Oh, sorry. Just so this the paper that we're talking about on Reddit, my wife sent it to me like 3 or 4 months ago. I don't know how long ago. And she's like, "Look at this paper." And I was like, "Oh, that's really cool." And I'm just literally now, as I'm seeing you guys and seeing this, like I'm literally just connecting the dots. So I'm gonna be the slow person in this call, as you can tell.
I had a very different experience at the conference because I was just there to have fun. We ended up running into probably almost, I want to say 5 or 6 like real Frisbee players, people who like play high level club, play in the UFA, things like that for different things. Lear Goval was there. We ran into Trevor Smith from Rhino. We ran into one of the Dross brothers.
Wow.
There were a handful of Frisbee players who were like, "Oh, there's a Frisbee paper. We got to go check it out."
Oh, really? Also, that's cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm a big fan of the chess community. I play a lot of chess, so there was also a huge chess contingent there as well.
Did you actually know that there's a Mama Bird alum? He lives in Seattle. His name's Chris Bubernack. He works for the Boston Celtics in their analytics department.
I knew that, but I didn't. He was not at the conference. I don't think the Celtics had their analytics staff there, but I listened to that podcast way long ago, and I was like,
"Yeah, he was one of our first guests."
Cool.
Yeah, like what, episode 4 or something?
Something like that.
Yeah, I was like, it was early, but I was fascinated, and obviously he does real NBA work, so he might have harder critiques about what we've done.
Well, but I'm sure he would love to talk to you guys as well. I should put you in touch.
Yeah.
Shall we get into like the nuts and bolts of things in terms of what metrics have you really found useful? Like, how did you come up with them? Like, I think the 3 bullet points that I've written down are that I just took from your Substack post. What is adjusted expected contribution, expected completion percentage, and completion percentage over expected, or take it however you want. Like, how did you come up with these metrics?
I'll let Braden explain the metrics specifically, But like as an overarching thing coming from other sports, and Braden and I like kind of come at things from a little bit different angles, which I think makes it more refined and makes it better usually. But like what I'm used to in the sports analytics world is like EPA. If you've heard of EPA in football, expected points added, it's like the like foundational measure of like value in the NFL. So if you watch like Amazon's AWS Thursday night broadcasts and their stats broadcasts, like you'll see them say, and then like even now, like Mina Kimes on NFL Live will use EPA and some other analysts will use EPA. And the idea is like how much value you gained from a play, and that is relative and better than just saying yards or whatever else, right? So that was kind of like initial inspiration. And in a way, these stats can be like correlated to other professional sports, and similar to like completion probability, right? In the NFL, there is CPOE. They use it all the time, and it's like how much a quarterback completes their passes over expected. Mm-hmm. So I'll let Braden explain the actual stats that we have, but like as an overarching theme, like I feel like they should be pretty familiar to those who might be watching these alternate broadcasts or have listened to ESPN's NFL Live or anybody else who's like a talking head that actually uses the advanced analytics.
Yeah, so AEC, or adjusted expected contribution, is kind of the one like big metric that we think provides the most new information and probably is the most valuable. And all the other ones are similar in that they provide new information or are valuable, but this is kind of like the one that we're hoping to talk about the most and like use the most in the future and things like that. But what we did is we built a machine learning model. We got the idea from Weiss and Shadow's paper back 10 years ago or something like that, and they did a very similar thing where they said, this spot on the field, this is how likely you are to score from every single spot in the field. And so you can pull up a graph of the field and you can plot a heat map and say, no matter where you are in the field, this is how likely you are to score. And from that, you can then say, how does that value change through every pass, throw, drop, block, whatever it may be. And so that's what our expected contribution is. But teams are likely to score. Like we know that in Ultimate. Like the offenses score more often than they don't. And so because of that, the values were very, very small, which then comes our adjustment, right? So we say the adjusted expected contribution is every single possession you take the minimum field value, which is the minimum probability of you scoring, and you take each action, its added value, and you divide it by that value. And so this metric has a couple of cool properties. Every single possession you have, if you add up all of the adjusted expected contribution values, it sums to 1. So let's say that our defense gets a turn on the 5-yard line. We throw 3 passes, 3 swings, and we score a goal. The adjusted expected contribution will add up to 1. It might be like negative 0.1 if you throw like a dump that's not a great a valuable throw, and then like 0.4, 0.5, and then 0.2. And if you receive like a very deep pull and you throw 50, 60 passes, each one of those will probably add a little bit or subtract a little bit, but overall it sums to 1. So overall, it has a bunch of cool things about it. Not only does it, so because it sums to 1, you can compare it to like goals and assists. Like if I have an adjusted expected contribution of 1 in a single possession, that means that I basically did everything on that possession. Over the course of the game, if my adjusted expected contribution sums to 5, it means I contributed about 5 scores worth of value to my team through my throws and receptions, regardless of whether those were goals or receptions.
I see. Yeah. So meaning you may not have thrown a goal or thrown an assist or caught a goal, but it should show the value of what you did on the field.
Right. Yeah. So a couple more interesting examples is let's say that you catch the pull, you throw a Huck to the goal line, and then they throw like a flat swing and then throw a goal. you get 0 stats for that, 0 hockey assists, 0 goals, 0 assists, but you get 0.95 worth of AEC because you were the one who threw the most value.
Right.
Another interesting thing is the current yardage statistic. Let's say I am on the goal line and I throw like a blade to the back corner. I get 20 yards worth of throwing yards because I threw it 20 yards, but it's just as valuable as if I had thrown like a half a yard push pass into the end zone. Does that make sense?
Totally. That one's really interesting because one of them is definitely a harder throw.
Yes.
I wonder. Well, actually, I want you to finish explaining things, and then I'll ask more questions.
Okay. Another example is end of quarter. If I just like rip it deep, the expected probability of scoring in an end of quarter is already low. So your negative contribution is much smaller than it would be in the middle of the quarter, where the opposing team would have a chance to score, versus when there's time is expiring, it automatically accounts for that because the possibility of you scoring is already low and the possibility of your opponent scoring is extremely low.
Right. How do you know how to weight that? Is there a good sense of like adjusting that over time?
Yeah, I might be able to share my. Can you share screen on this?
Yeah.
We'll be able to show like some plots that might help. I don't know. Let's see.
I'm definitely interested.
Let's see.
And I will say, so my background is also in data and software engineering. And one thing that I always like to say in Frisbee, but also in projects like this, is it's an iterative process. Like where it's at today, I would, however much passion you can fuel you, hopefully maybe monetary at some point, but it should be better tomorrow than it is today.
And it's already drastically different than when we started. Like if you read our paper and you see our models now, like they're already different models and different methods, so already very different.
What's like the average AEC? Do we have like a good average across the league?
You could check. I mean, just go on Shown Space and look for the percentile of 50% on the.
Okay.
Let's see.
Because I'm looking at Walker at 66, and I'm thinking that is like ungodly.
Oh, it is, and we definitely can talk about that more. But I mean, not only is 66 really crazy, but look at the second person, who is Austin Taylor right now, who has 10 lower and has also played another game. Like he has another game on top of that. Walker's, it's pretty insane.
Yeah. So by that measure, you would say he is the MVP.
Yes,
he's leading right now. Yeah.
I would. I mean, the thing is, with all stats, especially usage-based stats like this, Walker has played a lot more games than a lot of people in the league, right? So, a lot, some other amazing players will be able to catch him. If you look like the per game stats, Walker's at like 6.6 per game, which is still very, very high. But there are people who are near him. Scott Heyman's missed a few games. Alan Laviolette. Who could definitely get up there, but doesn't have the games under his belt yet. So
interesting. He's definitely been putting up some big numbers.
Yes, yeah.
So interesting.
I'm keep navigating to the Substack. What is the URL for the actual website?
Shownspace.com.
Oh,
yeah. Okay. Another cool property of AEC is it values resets differently than yardage does. So if I throw a reset to the middle of the field, even if I lose a couple of yards, it'll still add positively to my AEC because the model has learned that the middle of the field is more valuable than the edge of the field.
That's interesting.
I was going to ask about that because I feel like the model that you mentioned in the beginning of like where the turns happen, like sideline has got to be like a hot spot for turns. So like getting it off the sideline 15, 20 yards has got to be like some type of valuable pass, which obviously doesn't show up in regular statistics ever. It even shows up negatively in statistics usually.
Exactly. Yeah. No, 100%. And if we can get if the screen share thing works, Miller has a graph that we were looking at yesterday. but the numbers show that it's in the same spot in the middle of the field on average. I mean, it obviously depends on where exactly you are, but the middle of the field versus the sideline is a difference of about 10% of probability of you scoring.
Interesting. That's crazy.
Yeah, so it won't let me share my Chrome. I have to like exit Chrome before I can like share again because I had to allow it. But I threw it in the doc. So if you
Okay.
the episode notes doc, so if you can share it,
Yeah.
you can show it. But
Let's see. Where is it? Oh, there. Oh, okay.
so it may take a second to explain, but you'll get your.
I'll share my screen here. I love that how you said that the model learned that the middle of the field is more valuable, and but so is it fair to say like just based on results of a point or whatever, it basically it proves out, it confirms what we already know intuitively, at least in that sense.
Yep.
Over here at Pod Practice, we are excited to announce that we are partnering with Greatest Bag to provide you with all of your ultimate bag needs. If you're looking to get a new ultimate bag, head on over to greatestbag.com. And if you use code PodPractice10, you will receive 10% off your purchase.
Basically, this is the field going north. Like the very top of the image is the goal line. And obviously, I haven't spent any time to make this look nice and label it and stuff. But the idea is like this is a field. The pred true is basically the probability of scoring a goal, and so you can kind of see the contour lines and like back of your own end zone, you have like on average a 50% chance of scoring a goal.
Interesting.
And you can kind of see how those contours like make the middle of the field higher value compared to the edges.
Dude, this is so sick.
So, I mean, that's what like has happened in the past. Obviously, this is on average. So, like in our model, we also have like time remaining and like things like that. And so, this adjusts based on those, but this is like the average of it. There's other. Oh yeah. So to help understand like why we called it adjusted expected contribution better is like just contribution would be like say you throw a goal from the back of your end zone, just a huck that's like 85 90 yards, or I guess it's more, yeah, from the back of your end zone, you'd only get half of a contribution in that case because we already expect you to score 50% of the time if you have the disc in the back of your end zone, because possession is that valuable in ultimate, right?
I see.
We always expect O-lines to score. And so in essence, like an average O-line should be scoring more than half the time most of the places on the field. So by throwing a 90-yard huck for a goal, the model is like, or the way the data shows out, it's like you're only adding like 50% probability of scoring by getting the rest of the way. And so us calling it adjusted expected contribution basically says, okay, well, let's like regularize it and basically say that we want each possession to have like possible for one contribution, one goal, one assist, one score, whatever you want to call it. And so we then say like you started where there's a 50% chance of scoring, and by scoring all the way, that's like equal to 1. And so we just kind of adjust it in that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I see. That's interesting. So these lines here kind of show, so like it's 75% chance of scoring from the middle of the field here. If you can see my mouse, I don't know if you can.
Yep.
Yes.
And then so as you go close to the sideline, like actually help me understand that. How so this like what am I looking at when I look at the lines?
Yeah, so that's where like you can think of it as like climbing a mountain, right? Like contours. So along that 0.7 line is that's where like that height is or whatever. So 70% scoring all along that line. And as you're going from the 0.75 over to the right, you can see that the 0.75
you need to be closer to the end zone.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
I see.
Oh, yeah.
I see. That makes sense.
Yeah. So if you look at it, being in the middle of the field compared to is about a 10% advantage, sometimes like on average, from being like in the same position but laterally trapped on the sideline.
Right.
Ends up how it kind of is working out. It's not linear like that, so it's not always 10%, but it just depends. Yeah.
And it's what do you think this is, like the middle
third,
Middle half,
third.
middle third, yeah.
Middle half. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, that's cool. Because as I was thinking about, like, you know, a lot of teams, they'll, like, if just on like the centering pass off the pole, they will try to offset it a little bit. I was wondering if how that affects it, but I see that it does account for a good chunk of the middle of the field. Okay, let me switch back so I can see you guys. Oh, go ahead, Braden.
I'm just going to say another reason for our adjustment is the contribution metric itself has a negative component. Like if you throw a turnover, we assign you the negative probability of your opponents. So like if you throw a turnover at any one of those locations along the 0.7 line for your opponents, then you would get a negative 0.7. So it automatically accounts for the turnovers, the drops, the stalls, that sort of thing as well. And since the expected contribution was scaled so small and the turnover was scaled so large, almost everybody in the whole league had like a negative contribution. So the adjustment makes it so your possible positive is a maximum of 1, and your possible negative is a minimum of -1. So it kind of scales out evenly that way as well with the adjustment.
I see. That's very cool.
So average, if I go to like 50th, it's like an 8-ish. Am I mistaken, or is that?
That sounds about right.
Okay.
It's also tough because, like, when you say average, do you include all the people who have only played like one game, you know, or like the people who don't play a ton? And if you're on defense, you're automatically getting a whole lot less. So you can go average, total, and then there's also that filter for like per game and per possession. You could check out.
Yeah, I've got it at five games and 20 possessions on each side. Like you guys have it set at the average, but we'd probably need to like up the offensive possessions to make it truly accurate. Interesting.
Okay.
It looks like 1.2 is the average per game.
Okay. Interesting.
AEC. That's
yeah. And you can also split it for throwers and receivers, right? You say this is your AEC that you've contributed as a thrower, your throws contributed, and this is what you've contributed as a receiver, and we add those together to get the total, of course.
I see, but you can see them parsed out.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Maybe I'll show the website. I'll share the website in a minute here. Do you want to talk briefly about expected completion percentage?
Yeah. Go for it, Jacob.
So similar idea to any like quarterback metric in football. Like longer throws are going to be completed less frequently than shorter throws. And so we built a similar model that takes into like throw distance, throw angle, location on the field, and you get like the expected probability of that throw being completed. So for example, if you throw a pass that's expected to be completed 90% of the time on average, and you complete it, then your like completion probability over expected was 10% on that throw. And so you aggregate it over the whole game or everybody's throws, and you'll end up getting like expected completion probability based off of the difficulty that the throws that you take. And then the CPOE, the completion probability over expected, is like in relation to that expectation. Are you doing better than that, or are you doing worse than that? It's kind of the idea.
That's really cool.
Interesting.
Have you gotten any insights on specific throwers? Like, let's see, where would be a good way for me to look at this? Actually, should I?
Players.
Yeah.
And then if you go to the profile on the top, you could be able to search for player in the top left.
So should we look at Quinn?
Oh God. Well, I first saw my AEC. I'm like, oh, that's not that good, and then I realized it's just not that good compared to Walker's.
Should I?
Well, in fairness, nobody's is compared to Walker's. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so this is for this year.
Yeah,
Yep.
we still needed to do some aesthetic work on the website. That was what I was supposed to do, and I obviously keep dropping the ball.
Well, you have many things to keep you busy right now,
Yeah,
including a human life.
yeah, it's harder.
Okay, so where is your CPOE?
Jacob, do you have that graph you made yesterday? Could you throw that up in the doc? That might be a good thing to show
I
as
can do
well.
that too.
We anticipated this conversation a little bit, so we put together a few different things.
Oh.
Sometimes it's easier to visualize it. So
Yeah, this gives you a whole idea of a player, but if we're diving into one metric, it's a little easier to pull up a whole different players based on that one metric instead.
Yeah, the visuals are big for me because I'm not that smart, and like listening to you guys talk about this, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then I just see it, and I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Player impact.
yeah, so I just threw it up in there.
97th percentile. I will.
Is that good?
Up. I would say 97th percentile is quite good.
Oh, Pavel's in there. Oh man, my career just slowly going downhill.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
It's not? Okay, good.
So here's the thing with expected completion probability is that it's not necessarily good or bad. It's just like how risky your shot selection is, right?
Oh, that makes sense then. Okay.
So like you can throw risky throws and still be a good player, and you can throw super safe throws and still be a good player as well.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also see trends. Like you can see how your shot selection has changed over time and how well you performed compared to that expectation over time as well.
Yeah, I can add any person you want, you're interested in. These are like your player names on the UFA's API. But like what we're seeing here is like each little individual plot is an individual player, and it's over time, so season by season. And the colored line is the person's actual completion probability for that season, and the gray line is their expected completion probability for that season. So if we look at Quinn, like in 2022, like his expected completion probability, that gray line is like 93-ish%, and then went up a little bit in 2023. And then his expected completion probability, he's thrown the hardest throws in 2025 compared to previous seasons. And his actual completion probability is above that gray line, meaning you complete them much more frequently than we would expect given the difficulty of the throws.
But Quinn, maybe also you should not do so many hard things.
Maybe take an easier shot once in a while.
Well, one little quick caveat is you asked about this in one of our emails too. None of this has included weather yet. And weather is so big in Ultimate.
So big.
Yeah.
And so it's like, we need to get it. I actually have a script that pulls from an open weather API and grabs like the average of the wind speed from the 3 hours at the location of each stadium during the game.
Wow.
But
That's so
the
cool.
problem is that
the stadium itself also affects
so much.
Yes.
Dude.
Yeah. There's so many factors.
I don't know if you guys have seen the new broadcast, but they'll have like the weather ticker in the top. And I'm assuming that's connected to some API. But like we were watching the Summit Houston game, and you guys were like, it looked really windy. I can't remember.
It's windy as fuck.
Me, Kerr, and Braden were watching it at Kerr's place, and it was like the ticker was like 2 mile per hour winds,
bro.
And it was like, there's no way this is 2 miles per hour. I don't know what API they're grabbing that from because they're obviously not manually inputting that. But that's the problem with the weather API that I don't know if I completely trust it is because of stadium effects. And then also, I'm not so sure it's perfectly accurate because there were games that I remember being insanely windy and then looking up the wind for that game, and it wasn't that bad. But that's the caveat about all these is that we have yet to include wind or weather, and we need to. And I think that'll help it, especially for completion probabilities.
Yeah, for sure. But I suppose just sheer volume of data also helps kind of even out those trends.
That's right. Yeah.
So you might have already said this, but what goes in? What are the like the things that go into deciding if a throw is difficult or not? It's like sidelines are obviously more difficult. Length of throws is more difficult. What else goes into it?
Let me pull it up and look.
Okay, cool. And so we don't have like marks yet either on this, I'm assuming.
No.
Like if it's a break throw or something,
No.
that would be sick, but gotta be so hard to get in there.
No, yeah. So I mean, now's a good time to talk about this, but there are a lot of issues with the data that we're using. And a lot of like biases. Obviously, like someone's just on the side with an iPad, just like stamping it in, right? And,
Yeah.
And there are a whole bunch of errors with that as well, in addition to the problems with the collection. For example, one of the biggest ones that we run into is a location bias. Like, let's say that I'm throwing, a crossfield huck or like a hammer or something like that. If it gets D'd, it's way more or I missed the throw, like I execute the throw. Almost all the time, it's going to end up going out the sideline, and so the person with the iPad is going to click, "This is where the throw was," and it was on the sideline. Where if it's a completion, it's rarely going to be on the sideline. It's going to be like off the line, at least by a couple of yards. And so it's really hard. It's not like the intended spot. Like it's not like this is where I was trying to throw it. It's where the disc ended up, which creates a handful of issues.
Interesting. Yeah. Your models or your insights can only be as good as the input that you have.
And so when we designed it, we like tried to do what you were talking about. Like we want the average. We want like a baseline that is on average. This is what it looks like, average across a whole bunch of different throws. So hopefully, if you as an individual take enough throws, this is probably pretty accurate. But with all the issues, it's never 100% perfect.
So like I'm still looking at this last graph. Like looking at Babbitt's and Pavel's. Mm-hmm. They're just not throwing that many hard throws. It's which makes sense to me, especially for Babbitt. But
yeah,
okay.
Well, let's Mikey, could you pull up the website and then we can highlight another cool feature along with showing this.
Take charge of your real estate future with HomeForce, the all-in-one home buying service built specifically for Ultimate players, their friends, and their families. Powered by the Ultimate Lending Team, HomeForce was engineered by Ultimate players for Ultimate players. It's your one-stop shop for everything real estate. Let Jim Nolte and his team at HomeForce quarterback the whole process or jump in just where you need help. Follow at Ultimate Living Colorado on Instagram.
So we also created these radar plots, which is what we like to call like your player tendencies. If you have the disc like in the center of a circle, do you throw it straight forwards? Do you throw it to the right? Do you throw it backwards? That kind of thing. So looking at Quinn's, you like to throw forward a lot, but your receiver radar is a lot more balanced, right? Mm-hmm. So if you look up Jeff Babbitt, let's see what his looks like.
This is very interesting.
And so you can one of my favorite things about this is you can pull up any random player that even if you know them or not, you can hit backspace and it should just let you type in.
Excellent.
Yeah, there we go.
Have the developers on.
Yeah. So this
he's
is
thrown all over. Yeah.
This is very abnormal to see someone so like rounded out like this. When you have the disc, you very much tend to throw it forwards because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to advance the disc, right? So you can tell the type of thrower and receiver he is. And that's why his expected completion percentage was so high, is because he throws so many throws backwards compared to like the average person. Or if you also pull up like someone like Solomon Rushard Bailey, it's really interesting to see the receiver will be like almost like squished.
Oh yeah, we could pull it if you had stats from like 2017, you would see Matty Jackson's old negative receiving yards. Interesting.
Yeah, so you see like a lot less straightforward, straight backwards, a lot more to the side. If you want to go to your career, I think it'll highlight that even more.
So
there we go.
Another thing,
so like very, very flat.
Are you able to kind of tell? Are you able to kind of tell like which are they throwing backhands or forehands more? Is that what I'm getting from the thrower?
Can I actually
kind of
just knowing that Solomon's a lefty and seeing these like to me this indicates he's throwing
a lot of lefty around flicks, right? That's what it's indicating to me. But I'm just like I'm not sure. Is that kind of accurate or semi-accurate? What do we think?
We think so. This is what we do. Is we're like we think so, but we don't have any data to say like you're right. But I would think so.
I guess technically it could be inside backhands all day.
Yeah.
But
sure.
knowing him, watching him play, I'm 100%
Yes.
sure it's definitely around flicks. But
I like it as a like another tool, right? Because like
Yeah,
we know what Solomon's like as a player, and seeing this visual is like kind of helpful to confirm what I already think, or like how we should mark him.
I like to.
Is
I'll
this
go for it, Jacob.
Absolute radar? Not
Yes,
relative.
yeah, it is. Yeah. So when you guys were talking about stats in a previous episode, Alex was talking about how like you look at a handful of different stats and you kind of make up a story looking at all the different things, and you can do that exact same thing here with the type of thrower they are. Like you look at the thrower radar, you see what they like to throw. Do they just like boost it forward all the time? But then you also look at their XCP and you say how risky of a thrower are they? You look at their CPOE, you say how far above those expectations they're performing, and then you look at their actual completion percentage. And then you add in like their thrower AEC as well. And together, all of those things can paint a pretty good picture of a thrower and a player.
This is so cool.
Yeah, guys, this is fucking sick.
Another metric that probably falls into that category is OI, which is our offensive involvement. It's for how many offensive possessions you played. It's how many offensive possessions you had a catch or a throw in over how many offensive possessions you played. So his value is 95. So 95% of the possessions that he is on the field for, he is involved in, versus like an O-line cutter or like a rail cutter will be much lower than that.
Let's see who's.
And involve is just touch the disc once.
Yep. Yes.
So
exactly.
like if you're a center handler, your OI is okay. Gotcha.
Yep.
Do you have everybody in here?
Only people who played in 2025.
Okay. Who's a good example of just like a continue cutter?
A continue cutter.
Maybe we'll just go. Well, I know Piper plays on our team, and
he's only played like 2 games, dude.
That's true. I wanted to see. Okay, I just wanted to see like something different, like a different OI though.
Yeah.
Like not surprising that Piper is lower.
Yeah. I mean, this is another conversation that Braden and I were talking about with you all, and maybe this conversation bleeds over to later as you think about it throughout the season or whatever over time. But Ultimate is inherently different than other sports in the sense that like our offensive, and we talk about this all the time in Ultimate, our O-line O possessions the same as D-line O possessions. Like as an Ultimate Frisbee player, I'd inherently say for sure no.
For sure no.
But like we don't have a way to like value them differently. Like a possession is a possession. And so like we have some really good, what we think of as offensive defenders on shred, and they're never going to have the involvement that an O-line O player is. And that's just because of the way the situation that they're in, right? You like D-line gets a turn and they have a couple throws and then turn it over, and you don't necessarily always touch the disc, but when you receive the disc on a pull, it feels like the offense flows easier and everybody has a better chance to touch it. So it's this like difficulty in how do we compare people that just play such different positions, and we're such an offensive focused sport still stats wise. And you guys have talked about that before too. So it doesn't get any easier because the way stats are tracked in the UFA is still disc centric, but hopefully it's better.
Right.
And it's so interesting too, like if you have a certain matchup too, there's just like, if there was a way to filter, like get in, like if I'm being guarded by the best defender in the world, like it makes it obviously so much more difficult for me to like contribute and touch it and stuff like that. So in a certain game, like that's so interesting.
Oh yeah. At some point, I suppose, will you guys have okay. You have game stats. Cool.
Well, while we're on here, we're kind of rapid firing a whole bunch of different new metrics. So if you have questions about any of them, let us know. But there are still, 3-4 other ones we'd love to talk about.
Oh yeah, let's go
let's
for
do
it.
it.
The first one is PI, which we call player impact. And this is how much of your team's contribution do you account for as a percentage. So if you go to like Walker Frankenberg in his game against us, he had an AEC of like 11 or 12, I want to say, somewhere between there. And so scroll down to like the game stats, and you'll see his PI for that game was 30. I want to say it was 35 if I remember right.
Let's see, how do I?
It's at Shred.
Oh,
and
okay,
then
June 27th.
Yeah, 35.4. So the
Jesus.
team had a total contribution throughout the whole game of I don't remember what the number is, but obviously 35% of that contribution was solely done by Walker Frankenberg.
And is that because goals, assists, hockey assists? Is that how are we calculating
no.
this?
This is AEC. This is only AEC. This
Oh.
is the value of your throws, regardless of whether
Okay.
they led to scores or not.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So this is an insanely high number. If you go to like the leaderboard and you like sort by player impact, you see the first thing you see is like a whole bunch of Vegas players and let's see. So you can just click on PI there on the right.
Okay.
And click on it one more time. There you go. So you see a bunch of Bighorns and Aviators players because their team has a very low AEC. So if you have even a decent AEC, your player impact is very, very high. And then you see Walker Frankenberg, Alan Laviolette, who have this is over the course of like the whole season. Like they're averaging almost a fifth of their team's contribution as a single player.
Wow. It does kind of surprise me. That to me, just like Walker is very good. It surprises me only because he has Leo on his team.
They use like we were talking about earlier, they use him so much. He's like probably the highest volume player in the league right now.
Yeah.
Which is this a different conversation, but it's like maybe that's not such a good thing all the time. Like I don't know, they lost by 4 to you guys, and so he funny. Had that game.
Yeah, we literally had this exact conversation like yesterday. We're like, compared to basketball, where one player can like take over game, score 60, 70 points. Is that a good thing to have that high of a player impact for a single game, or is it not? Like we have no idea, but who knows?
I tend to think it's not.
Yeah,
but like. Not to take away anything from that stat line, because that's maybe the greatest stat line I've ever seen in my life. But to lose by 4, not just like to lose by 1 or 2, to lose by 4 and have that stat line, while, like Mike, like you're saying, like Leo had kind of a modest stat line and Reese had a modest stat line. And maybe that's game conditions, maybe that's matchups, things like that. But it doesn't seem to be advantageous for him to be doing that much.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, I mean, you even talk about like raw stats. Like, do you live with Zep scoring 11 goals on you if you can hurt their offense elsewhere? I mean, I don't know. I don't ever want somebody to score 11 goals. So, like, that's not a great question.
But maybe.
But relatively, I don't know. And so similar to like Walker, like, of course, we're going to try to stop him from walking up the field against us. Like, it seemed like he did a few times. But, like, you're trying to, as a team defense, take away something specific. And if he ends up getting that on the way and scoring 30 or accounting for 35% of the value that your team built that game, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. It's an open question.
What's the easiest way to see usage?
So you have if you click on like all stats there instead, that's probably a good place to start. And then you have games played, which is GP, offensive possessions, which is OP, and then there's defensive possessions, which is DP. So and then completions also could be a usage one as well.
Okay. I see. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Because it would be interesting to see like at a glance view of usage plus relative to player impact. You know what I mean?
Like one encompassing statistic just to say usage that combines like 4 different things.
Yeah.
I like that.
So many things on our list of things we
I'm
invent.
sure.
Add it to the list. But get the marks if it's a break throw or not before that. All right.
That's so hard. Yeah, gosh.
But that one, man, because I got a question for Braden and Jacob, actually, kind of off topic but on topic. Would you rather have the best hucker in the world on your team or the best break mark thrower in the world on your team, and they're bad at the other thing?
I think it would depend on the rest of your team, though, right? Like,
Sure.
if you're playing in a style that is like, oh, we're just gonna, shoot it down the field and score that way.
You have your current team. You have your current team.
Yeah,
that's easy.
I think break thrower
for sure.
Yeah. I think so. My answer is going to probably always be break thrower. Like, having a good hucker is awesome, but if you can have someone who can just break the mark at will, it's like, I think that is probably the most valuable thing a player can do. If you're doing it just like, obviously there's a ton of stuff that goes into that, but like if you're just zeroing in on one thing, in my opinion, like that's it.
That makes me think of just like a very common situation. Almost every team runs some sort of side stack at some point. And it's very common to see the mark force the thrower to the side stack. So I often see, I would say most throwers, most people that you center to, if they tend to not break the mark to the ISO. When it is a relatively easy break, like oftentimes the defense, for whatever reason, they have like a lot of space to throw to, but they just look it off. I don't know why. As a coach, is something I've always thought about, and you see like this person who we're centering to, just like, I don't know if it's a fear component or what they like. Whereas like Toby Brooks, you center to him, he's gonna find a way to get it. He'll throw that fucking bladey forehand or something, and that to me is very high value.
We were talking to Ben Dameron about this in London, and he was talking about John McDonald, who's not a super well-known player, and he was saying that like he was like one of the most valuable players on Dark Side for a lot of their championships, purely because he would hit the pull play every single time. He would break the mark to the pull play every single time. He would find a way to get it there, and that is like so underappreciated and just not as easy to find. I think like Nut is another really good example of that. But yeah, super interesting.
Well, this is going to sidestep that question a little bit. First of all, I would for sure take break thrower just because Shred has gotten by being pretty decent without any really good huckers for a long time now. So fair enough. A break throw, elite person who can break the mark is always so valuable. But in terms of getting that data, like so hard, right? We already know that. I think, and I could be speaking out of turn here, but Braden and I have talked a little bit with the league and I've heard some things here and there, but it sounded like New York, or they did a couple games where people put like tracking on players, like put GPSs on them.
Yeah.
It's like infeasible, right? So expensive. Then you have to deal with all the data. But like our dream is to get like actually good all 14 camera footage, similar to like what the all 14 guy on Instagram does. But like you can't fly drones in every stadium, so probably not going to work. But like, can we get good enough camera angles to be able to use computer vision algorithms to extract that tracking data? Then we can do more spatial stuff and actually like classify whether the defensive point was force whatever, and if they broke the mark on that throw. Like that's the next frontier, and we are never going to be able to get there with iPad tracking right now, but we'll need good camera angles, and that's the hope.
Damn, that's sick.
I mean, I wonder if does the NFL are they even able to get that nitty gritty? Like
the NFL, I think, is all GPS in the shoulder pads, helmet, ball, especially because when players are on top of each other, the computer vision can't figure out as easily who's who and where everybody is. But obviously, they're very sophisticated, have a ton of money. So yeah, the GPS tracker is the way all their data is. It's like
I see.
It's every 10th of a second you get a location for every single player on the field.
Every 10th of a second. Wow, that's cool.
Okay, we only got through one of the statistics they wanted to talk about there, which I think
Yeah,
we were on
keep
PI,
going.
and then we just fucking got sidetracked. What's the next one?
Well, let's stay
All
on
right.
topic. Should I go
All
back?
right, let's jump over to ROE and RDE, which is I don't know how to describe it. It's a little flimsier than a lot of the other metrics we talk about. Like I personally, like, I live and die by this AEC stuff. Like, I think it's very, very useful. It's like rock solid, very stable. It passes the smell test. It's exactly what you would expect it to be.
Yeah.
But we also wanted to create like an overall like plus minus metric almost. Like, how much better is your team when you're on the field versus when you're not on the field? And so that's where this relative offensive efficiency and relative defensive efficiency comes in, because offensive efficiency in and of itself is more of a measure of how good your team is rather than how good you are as an individual.
Yeah.
So what we did is we built another model that accounts for the field value of the possession, how likely you are to score based on where the disc starts. It accounts for your teammate strength, how good your teammates are when they don't play with you, and how good they are when they do play with you, and then how good your opponents are, how often they stop you on defense. And it builds a model, and it says this is like a baseline of what we expected your offense's efficiency to be, and then you take, of course, the actual and the expected, and you compare them, and that's where you get this relative offensive and defensive efficiency.
I see. Okay.
So in 2025, why is my relative offense efficiency so bad?
So here's where it gets rough.
Because my defensive, I don't have a single block this year, and it's my relative defensive efficiency is higher than my ROE.
So here's where it gets really hard. In Ultimate, the way we build lines, you play with the same players a lot of the time, right?
Right.
Like, very rarely. It's not like super rare, but it's rare enough that when you play with somebody else, and so because of that, the sample size of you playing with other people is small. And not only that, but often that happens in special situations. Yeah. End of quarter, you've gotten broken a few times in a row. That
injury
sort of thing.
Sub or something like that. Yes. Okay.
On top of that, because it's an expected, and you only play with people on your team, half the people that you play with are going to be over 0, and half the people you play with are going to be below 0, right? So in general, I would say this stat works pretty well. Like, if you look at your team, I would say probably about 3/4 of the people will have a positive or minus of what you would expect it to be. But because of the way that Ultimate is like the way we play Ultimate, it's tough. So
yeah. Okay, me and Jacob are in like the exact same spot. That makes me feel better.
Well, yeah.
Try Will Selfridge. I want to know what his is.
Okay. Oh, look at.
Yeah, we're terrible.
Actually, I forgot what I was going to ask. So let's take a. Ooh. Okay.
Whoa.
So when he is playing on the line, the offense scores 2%. Our offensive efficiency is 2% higher than what it is when he isn't playing, and that to me is pretty accurate.
But defensively, I disagree, right? So I don't know.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay.
But it could also be, like, we cross Will over to defense in big games, and so it's already harder for him when he's playing with different people to get blocks because they're against better teams.
Or late in the game when he's already played 30 points.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I think they're at a base, like, good ideas and good metrics, but because the way Ultimate Frisbee works and the way we coach and things like that, there are definitely issues. So.
Right. Okay, that's so interesting. How does like just thinking about Quinn, for instance, does this encapsulate at all like the line itself, or is this really just him as an individual? Like
him as an individual.
Okay.
Yeah, it's tough though, because like Braden said, there's so much, like, when the better the model, the more like better models are built off of more better exploration of the space that the variables live in, right? So the fact that Quinn plays 95% of the time with the same 6 other guys or something like that makes it so the estimates and the models become much less certain. And so that's for sure the difficulty. So I mean, I wish we could run like basketball would be way easier because there's so many more permutations of lineups in basketball. And that's why their plus minus metrics are so much more stable.
Do you have thoughts on like how we call lines? Like, are we able to gain insight from this data in that way, or is this just something that we would have to change? Like, is there a way to gain insights like that? Should we be more flexible with personnel?
Good question.
I don't know. So this is a thought that Braden and I actually talking about yesterday. What I think this stuff says, so people have low usage who don't do a lot. If they have like really good AEC, really good, like these advanced metrics that are really impressive, it could mean like one of two things. It could mean they got lucky, and the reason the reason that they have it really high is because they don't play very much, and then they had a couple instances of playing really well or getting lucky, and so it's really high. The second one is like they're actually much better than they're being played, so give them a better chance, give them more chances to showcase their skills. I don't know. I think for me, a lot of these stats right now are more like consumer based. It's like, this is interesting, and I think it's a good way to value the field, value the players that is better than yardage, better than the raw stats we have.
Right.
But in terms of coaching or personnel decisions, really tough to say.
Interesting.
So you mentioned like low usage. Does AEC then account for like something we talked about with Jake Smart is because he does the whole ELO thing with his teams. So everybody has their own ELO, and over time you see, it's like you can see. I mean, similar to this, I suppose. Like, how well are they doing? But he's mentioned like there are people. I forget it exactly, but more or less people that he thinks of as like space creators, or like maybe they're not touching the disc. Like, does it account for that? Like, can we consider, and Alex Piper again for us, like he's really good at filling in or like making space for other teammates.
And maybe a point where he doesn't touch the disc is a success sometimes even.
Yeah. Well, there are a couple hard things with that, and the first one is, if you don't touch the disc, we don't have any data for you. All we know is that you were on the field, and that's literally it. So we can't really create a metric for that, except for this relative offensive and defensive efficiency. I am a little more optimistic, I think, about it than Jacob is, especially in certain cases. For example, I think D-line players get a lot more variety in the people they play with than O-line players, right? And so that automatically makes it more stable for those players. So if I was a coach and I was like, are there people that are flying under the radar that are guarding handlers and pushing to other players, but not necessarily getting blocks? This could be a spot for you to be like, oh, let me go look at my team who has higher relative defensive efficiencies. And of course, like, don't play them exclusively based off of who has the high RDE, but it could give you a list of 3 to 4 players that like, oh, I need to take a second look at those players.
I see. So how has this impacted the way Shred does anything, or you as individuals?
I would say that's a good question. I guess Braden and I probably have different perspectives on that, but maybe not. I don't know. We haven't ever talked about that. Like, being somebody who's interviewed a lot for these analytics positions, like, you're so steeped, like, for these positions, you get projects, and the project will be pretty specific. They'll dump you a ton of data, and they'll say, like, do an entire project for us so we can see how you work with data and what your conclusions are. So they'll give you a question, and you'll come with an answer. And you'll say, as an analytics person, definitively, you guys need to be doing this more based off the data that you've given me. But then the question always comes up, like, would you be willing to tell this to an assistant coach or to a player directly to their face? And you're like, oh, I think so. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm really confident in my methods. I think it was really sound. And I think the proof is in the pudding, like numerically, like you got to do this better. And then now I'm like also on the other side of the coin. Like I'm a fake professional athlete. And like, would I take my own advice on here? I don't know. Like, I'm not so sure. Like, are you kidding me? You have no idea what you're talking about, Braden and Jacob. Like this stuff doesn't actually like line up with what I think I should change about myself. Now, these are still value metrics, so it's not telling me to do anything differently. But just from that perspective, it's an interesting thought process to go down.
And to add on to that, I think there are some very specific use cases that are very good. For example, like one of my items that I'm working on right now is like a scouting report. We talked about all those like player tendency things. Like imagine I just gave you a 20-page document of every like one page for every player you're playing up against and said this is where they like to throw it to, this is where they like to receive from, this is how risky of a thrower they are, this is how well they complete their passes. Like it's like, oh, we want to funnel it to these people on the other team's O-line, we want to take away this around flick on these people. Like to me, like that's a very useful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That and you know, I yeah, anyway.
So do you
I did
guys
that
have
one
that
time
for us tomorrow, or what? You guys got a 20-page document for us?
Should we look at it?
Do you want me to make it for you and send it to you?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
send me yours too, so we'll have both. Yeah,
maybe we should take ourselves off of this so that you guys can't scout us.
Yeah, where's the reporting?
I was literally like, maybe we should do that.
Yeah.
So like,
I think there are very specific instances, but then we've also talked significantly about player value, like player assessment. What did I call it? I can't remember. But basically, the idea is: do metrics measure how good a player is, or how well a player has performed? And the distinction is how well they've done in the past, including like noise, versus how good of a player they are and how good they would be on your team. And those two are like different things. Man. And in reality, metrics capture a handful of both of those things, and they're highly correlated. Like if you have good metrics in the past, you're probably going to have good metrics in the future, right? But they're not a one-to-one. Like someone could have a ton of blocks, but that doesn't mean that they're a good defensive player. You know, like maybe the dish just went up, they got a whole bunch of end of quarter Ds, whatever it may be. And so the same thing applies to like probably the majority of our metrics, where someone could have like a massive game, but does that correlate? Does that mean they are the best player just because they have the best metrics? Maybe, but maybe not.
Yeah. It's like the eye test. I still think the eye test is just like is going to be king, especially like in the elite level of the game. Like I feel like those players know who's good, and regardless of what the stats say recently or overall, man. Like,
yep.
Yeah.
I wish. So go ahead.
No,
Well, go for it, Braden.
No, it's all you, Jacob.
No, I was going to change the subject, so you go.
Okay.
No,
I was just going to go back to the example of McDonald. Like you don't know that he's super valuable to the team until you play with him.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
You know, I wish that Alex Tatum and Nethercutt had played this year, because I would love to see what their CPOE is.
Yeah.
We've called Plow Alex Tatum. We've called Plow the possession ender, because he's either throwing a goal or throwing a turnover.
Yeah. Oh, that's another use case that I think is very valuable for stats like this. Is you have those types of players. We were talking to Tim DeBile about like Kai Marshall, or Kai Marcus, excuse me.
Kai Marcus, yeah.
Okay, he's
and same thing, like high risk, high reward. But when does that come to a point where you either play him or don't play him? And so you can look at metrics like this to see that type of thing. You look at the ROE, you look at the CPOE.
This doesn't surprise me, knowing the kind of throws he throws.
Yeah.
And I wonder if is it a coaching tool? Is it helpful? Like, hey Kai, look at your CPOE. Maybe factor this into your choices a little bit.
I think coaches have recency bias too much already as it is. I don't think. Maybe that's a conversation for another day.
Well, what do you mean? Unpack that for me.
I mean, I could give example. Like, how about Pro Champs last year?
Like how we valued
changed
our
everything and we valued that at the top because it was the most recent thing, and then we changed everything based on that, and it probably wasn't the right thing.
Yeah.
I think we do that more. I think a lot of teams, and us included, do that a lot more than just that too, though. I think it happens very, very frequently.
I agree.
It's like one game. It's like one game or even like one play can be like, oh my God.
Yep.
This guy. Holy shit.
You change something about like your system.
Mm-hmm.
It works or it doesn't work. And then you make your whole valuation of the system based off of, one
result.
Game, one play, one tournament.
Thing. Where
Yeah.
it's like, well,
100%
wait,
agree.
we have this huge like breadth of stuff that we can look at. Why are we looking at the most recent thing and using that as our linchpin for decisions?
Yeah. Like when I think about in the club division, like Truck Stop or Pony, they've had a consistent core on their O-line for many years. Although I suppose now Pony has had a lot of turnover over the course of 6 to 8 years. But there's probably a lot to be said about just letting them play together and figuring things out on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah, in my experience, it's like the loudest, most opinionated person on the line, depending on the day, that could be anybody, changes the way your offense runs.
That's definitely a thing. Yeah, that's funny.
Okay, what else is like super interesting?
Yeah, have we not touched on any of their stats?
If you this is switching gears a little bit, but if you want to head over to the game center instead of the player, we put a bit of work into this as well.
I was looking at this earlier.
Ooh.
So the new stat is WPA, or win probability added, and it looks at every event and it says how much did that change the outcome of the game, basically. And so this is a very volatile number. Like, it'll jump up and down very rapidly, but it's interesting because contributing to the game when you're up by 5, 6, 7 points doesn't matter, right? Versus when you do it when it's close, that matters a lot. So your WPA for events will be very high when it's at the beginning of the game in a blowout, but it will be even higher if it's like the end of the game and an overtime or double overtime, where every block, every goal like makes a huge difference. So you can pull up a game and you can say this player's events contributed the most to their win, and this is how much of it as a percentage their throws and catches and blocks.
Yeah, this is kind of an inspiration. A guy named Mike Bowie runs a site. It's called inpredictable.com, and he has a win probability model, and it's pretty good. It's well respected in the analytics space, I would say. And he has like a page where you can look at every NBA game from that night and not look at the score, but it'll tell you like an excitement index based off of the movement of the win probability graph. And so that's like, you can go back and decide whether or not you wanted to watch that game. It also has like most valuable player and least valuable player. So
least valuable.
Yeah. So person who had the least win probability added or most negative win probability added over the course of the game. Obviously, I think our stuff is, like Braden keeps saying, is a little bit noisy right now, given the fact that we don't have the actual time game clock where somebody has the disc. We only have timestamps at the beginning of every point. And even that may be a little bit fraught because your team may record the start of the point differently than my team does on our iPad. So there's some interpolation and some difficulty here, but that's kind of where the inspiration came from.
I see. That's cool, though. Can I look at different games?
Yeah, open up that, and then you can search for a game.
I don't know if you guys watch hockey at all either, but I'm a hockey fan, and there's a guy, I don't know who does, I can't remember the name of the guy who does it, but it's moneypuck.com, and he has like all of that stuff. Like, he's got a deserve to win-o-meter is what he calls it, and he's got basically everything. So if you guys are interested in, I know there's a new team out there too for you guys, so I'll put this in the chat. Yeah.
Okay, can you help me understand this? So we beat Steel in overtime. Hunter has a 58.5 WPA.
So all of his events, which this is very interesting because he has a negative total AEC, which I would assume that's probably because he had like a turnover or probably didn't throw and catch. Probably did a lot backwards or anything. But my assumption would be that he probably had a couple of like key blocks or something like that
towards the end of the game.
There you go, and that's exactly what it's saying is.
Wow, that's
more than anybody else.
It's a D-line.
So
yeah,
cool.
That's the D-line player one.
Okay, yeah, there you go. Kind of fun that you can just figure that out from those numbers.
Wow,
how often do you refresh this data?
This game data is relatively live, so you should be able to pull it up during the game and see it. But
cool.
There might be issues with that, although it should. I'm not 100% sure because it's tough because I want to like test it when it's live, but that's when I'm playing and can't spend my time working on this.
Wow, I'm so interested, especially since I have a development background too. I just want to like. I want to help QA some of this stuff.
I was going to say you're going to tear this thing apart. Like,
no, I get it. Like, I wouldn't say that I am a. I didn't say I was a good developer.
Sorry, can you guys explain to me WPA one more time? Sorry.
Yeah, so it's win probability added. So like if you go to the play-by-play up at the top, you should be able to go to the play-by-play tab. So every play here is on the right for every team, and it shows the score and it shows the associated WPA. So Connor Olson completes a 17.1 yard swing to Timothy Elliott. That added 0.7 WPA to both of their
cool.
And if you go and like probably whatever quarter Hunter had his blocks in, if you search for him and that quarter,
we're in a different game now.
Oh, so I'm sorry.
Are we?
I think you're in the Steel game now. I think you were looking at Seattle game before.
I thought it was like, oh, okay, you're right. Well, maybe I think I was looking at the Portland.
There's actually a search bar at the top that you can get all of his events at the top of the table. And you'll probably want to go to quarter 4 overtime whenever his blocks were.
Drops a 17-yard pass.
Not helping his total AEC. Okay, so fourth quarter over. Let's check out overtime. Beckett turns it over, blocked by Hunter May. So this was negative 24.8 for Beckett. Is that
exactly? Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that one.
He that one play increased your winning odds by 25%. That's what that's saying.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. You get a block in overtime, like that's probably true.
Wow. Okay. And I'm seeing another one, Axel Olsen. I'm looking at myself. There was a 13-yard pass to Asher Lance for a break, and it's 13.8, so it's for a break. So okay, this is I'm understanding it now.
Yeah. Yep.
Dude, this is so cool.
Our goal for this is like, you finish playing a game and you want to go look up all your stats and you immediately jump to the UFA website, but there are a handful of things with the UFA website that we thought could be better. So we're
more than a handful, but
we're hoping to do that both with the new metrics, the visualizations, even like following the game. If you can't watch the stream, you just want to follow the game, you can pull up the game cast and you can see where the throws are going in an easy manner, see how likely your team is to win, that sort of thing.
Yeah, this is awesome.
I'm trying to find Nanda's Callahan and see what that.
Ooh,
I can't remember what quarter it was in though.
It was second quarter against Seattle. Is there an easy way to search?
You can search. Yeah.
Same backspace.
Oh.
Oh, I think it's maybe this one. Philip Krolog turns it over on a 0-yard pass. Minus 26.6. Must be that.
Yep.
Yeah, it is. It is because I turned it over right before that. Yep, that's the one.
What the heck is Seattle called? Right, I can't think of it.
Cascades.
You dingus. Yeah.
Another fun thing with this is we use AEC on the team level as well, and we're still in the process of developing a lot of team level stats. Like we have it for games and for players, but teams is in the process. But you can say how much a team's contribution was and compare them. And the cool thing is the team with the higher AEC wins like 95% of the time.
Wow.
And what that basically is saying is, since every possession has a possible AEC of 1, and in general both teams have the same number of possessions, right? It would be similar to like an expected goals in like soccer or hockey or something, where it's you realize this much of a score on every single one of your possessions, and if you did score, it would be 1, and you compare those between the two teams. And so in some close games, the team that loses will actually have a higher AEC. So that would be like, you probably should have won because
Interesting.
you realize the potential of your possessions more. Although in a close game, it's sports, and that's why you play the games. Is anything can
Right.
happen.
Wait, sorry, say that one more. Or is there an easy way to visualize what you just said?
Go to Gamecast, and you have total AEC right there.
Okay.
And you guys had about 2 more total AEC than Seattle did. That means you realize the value of your possessions for 2 scores more than Seattle did, and it's reflected in the score pretty well.
Interesting.
So. But some close games, it'll be the opposite. It'll be, we lost in overtime, but we had a higher AEC than our opponents did. I want to say our first game against Seattle was that way.
Wow.
Yeah, May 24th, I think.
I'm pretty surprised the Cascades have the record they do, by the way. They're solid.
They really are. They really are.
Like one of the best, what are they, 2-8 teams ever?
I'm wrong about this. We had a higher AC.
Yeah.
I can't tell you off the top of my head, but
I'm trying to think of
let
one
me
of
see
the,
if I can find one.
There's like the Empire have had many close games. I wonder, like one of these Royale games.
Oh yeah, check out one of those.
Empire is still higher there. They're both quite inefficient. It looks like.
I think that game was super rainy.
We pulled up one of the mechanics games yesterday when we were looking through this, and mechanics had like a negative total AEC. They had like a -4 over the course of the whole game.
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
And our graphics, as you can see, like it's relative. So like if you get the higher AEC, it'll fill up the whole bar. Basically, I didn't code it so that you could have a negative AEC, so I didn't know what to do.
They broke it.
yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh wow! Okay, Royal. Is it the Royal or the Royale?
I
Royal?
think it's the Royale.
I don't know.
It's okay. We're not
not so
French.
good this game.
Dude, sick.
I forgot what I was gonna ask. Okay, I guess let's see. Any other?
One other talking point.
Yeah. Go for it.
So I've listened to most Pod Practice podcasts.
Thank you, but thank you very much.
Good lifting activity, You don't need to
Oh hell yeah!
hear every word, but you get the gist when people are complaining about something.
Good way to fall asleep. At least Kinge is not on.
The last few pods, you guys have talked about the disc, and Quinn, you said something. We don't have to go into that specifically.
Oh, we can if you want.
No. This is the data podcast, whatever. Our Frisbee opinions are irrelevant here, I guess. But you made a comment. You said, I bet you that completion percentages are down with the
Am I
disc
wrong?
because it's tougher.
Oh fuck.
Well, no. So like, we don't have to get into the super nitty gritty details. I might pull this in too, but I ran just like a simple like comparison logistic regression model with the over the seasons and to see if the estimates are significantly different. So I threw this graph in there. There's again terrible labels, but like you can kind of see, and it's in our Google Doc, the one that you had for the notes.
Support Pod Practice by visiting our coffee page. Donate and we'll send you a sticker. You can also support the pod by visiting the Be Ultimate Pod Practice store.
Basically, what this is saying is, I won't go into the details of what like the estimate is in logistic regression, but basically it's like this is the point estimate of like relative to the other ones, what the completion percentages are in each season. And you can see in 2021 we had Discraft in Ultrastar, 2022 in Ultrastar, 2023. So they're all basically the same, and the bars are like is 2 standard deviations, so 95% confidence or credible intervals. And last year, completion probability went much higher, and then this year it's significantly different and lower so far. Braden and I were talking about a little bit, again, there's no weather involved here, and I feel like there's been some pretty bad weather games, but anecdotally, the disc definitely flies different. It's harder to get used to. I'm not sure it for sure affects completion probability, but it was interesting to actually see this because I was expecting there to be zero difference. Over the course of an entire season, what are the chances that the completion probabilities are that much different from each other? Come on.
This is very low, yeah.
It's
and it's
super
interesting
low.
that it was high. It's so high last year.
I mean, even in 2021, I feel like the league has grown so much as far as elite club players that played in 2021 versus 2025 is vastly different. There was tons of elite throwers that weren't playing in 2021, and elite defenders and all of that stuff.
So do you think between last year and this year, it's the same mold but different plastic?
It's wildly different.
I think it's a different everything, but I'm not the person to ask.
Different
I agree.
mold?
I think it's all different. They said it's not a different mold, but it
feels different.
What is the sentiment around the disc at Shred generally?
I don't know, Braden. What would you say? I would say directional throws are more difficult, but I don't know.
I think I personally like it. This has been my favorite disc that I've played with.
Wow.
Over an Ultrastar.
Wow.
Yeah. I think generally people in Utah prefer, or Shred players probably prefer it to an Ultrastar.
Like it.
I don't know if I'd go that far.
You don't think so?
I don't know. Oh, first in terms of saying if Shred a lot of Shred players prefer it, I'm not sure.
Maybe I'm generalizing. I feel like a lot of Shred players played different sports and were really good athletes, and then found Frisbee and started throwing later in their careers. Was that accurate, or am I just blowing smoke?
Maybe.
I don't know. It always feels like you guys are just so athletic when we play you guys. It's who the fuck is this athlete that's just killing me right now? This is how I always feel.
I think almost everybody played in high school.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Maybe it's that we're not, because you made the comment, Quinn, that the good throwers, it brings the level of bad throwers up and good throwers kind of down a little bit.
Maybe you guys...
Maybe we're all just, like I said, we're all bad throwers, and so we don't do different.
Hang on.
It's possible.
I would stand by that. Maybe I wouldn't go as far to say bad and good, but I would stand by that in a certain realm.
There's also possibility of style of thrower. It's one of our players, Seth Wells, has mentioned he doesn't throw as many high degree of difficulty throws, for instance. So he doesn't notice as much of a difference in his opinion. He didn't throw a million Hucks. So now when he throws a Huck with this disc versus an Ultrastar or last year's mold or whatever, he's not so calibrated to that precise of a level.
Yeah, interesting.
That when he throws this version, he's that felt a little different, but
Oh yeah, I think now that I've played with it for this long, I have my biggest gripe, and I'm pretty much used to everything else. I would say is they designed it to go farther in the wind. That's what they're saying, and it does that. But the unpredictability of the way that it catches the wind, in addition to playing in stadiums, it's so wild that that is my biggest issue with it. Yes, it goes farther, but it's so unpredictable. Even players like cutters are well, I don't know how to high point this as well as I used to, and things like that. So that's my biggest issue with it at this point, now that I've played with it for long enough, I think.
I don't think we've noticed that, or I haven't noticed that as much, but I will say, is there anybody in the league that throws more pinpoint, same third, flick with edge Hucks than you? And I don't throw those. And so if those are no longer those are harder throws, and you rely on the edge of the disc so much, and you are in positions that I would never throw those flick Hucks.
Yeah.
Like I don't notice a difference. So I mean,
Okay.
we can opine all we want, and so I'm not an expert on this stuff at all. But
I'm the only dude that's just pissed about it because it's just how I throw.
it makes sense. It makes sense.
Maybe they designed it to
does.
make your throws worse. That's
Yeah,
the
they
reason.
killed me, dude. If there's no wind, I'm good. But in the wind, man, I think like Ryan Osgar, like I think I said this in a past podcast, like Ryan would have issue with it, I think as well, because we're similar Huckers.
Yeah, that's true. I wish I would have asked him about it this past weekend.
He's not playing.
Yeah, he's not playing. I don't know if
He
he's
hasn't-
throwing it, but
Yeah.
Okay, Quinn's got a hard stop coming up here, but is there any like stat stuff that we didn't hit? Because otherwise maybe we could just we're gonna see you in 24 hours. Like, maybe we can talk about that for a minute.
I was really hoping to mull over a new metric we've been thinking about with you guys.
Yeah,
if you're down for it.
100%.
So anytime we come up with a new metric, we go through like a whole process, and it's not formal at all, but like you come up with a number, then you look at the numbers. Does it pass the eye test? Is it useful? Is it valuable? Does it give you new information that another metric doesn't give you? And so a couple of days ago, one of the players on our team, Huff, reached out and was like, "Hey, I am interested in seeing all of my hockey turnovers." Because in our last game against Oakland, he had 3 hockey turnovers. He threw the throw before the turnover. And so that's like the idea of you can do that with not just, we do it with assists, but we could do it with a whole bunch of stuff. So we put it together with AEC. And another reason I was interested in that is because when Oakland came and played us, they threw 1 million roller pulls, right? Like I looked at my stats after the game, and my like throwing and receiving yards were like way worse than I thought they were going to be. And I think the reason is because I either threw or caught out of a double team, lost 15, 20 yards. And because of that, like my stats were bad. But then the throw after that throw might gain a lot of yards. So the idea is, can you come up with a metric that rewards you for putting your teammates in good positions? And so we looked at it. So I have a CSV I'm hoping to send you. Do you have like an email you want me to send it to?
You can send it to the pod
I have it with
email.
Everybody. Okay. Give me a second to do that.
Dude, I love this because I think hockey assists are so overlooked. It's like, oh, he had this many hockey assists. Like, and yeah, it could be just like I caught a swing and then threw another swing and they threw a score. Yeah. But like hockey assists are not often. I would say like 50% of the time just as valuable, if not more valuable than the actual assist. And
so
nobody gives a shit about them.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, I just sent it. It might take a little bit, and we can look it over together. So what I'm curious is, what I want to do is I want you guys to look it over specifically for the summit, and I want you to tell me what your thoughts on how it looks. And then we have a whole bunch of things that we're like, what about this? Like the limitations of every metric are there. So one of the ones that we've been talking about is it unfair to people who play on good teams? Like, will your metric for this be automatically inflated just because you're throwing to a good thrower? Because I'm throwing to Jordan Kerr, does that make it unfair versus someone who's not on a team with Jordan Kerr?
Right. Let me share my screen here.
There we go.
So let me orient you really fast. These like the player IDs the UFA uses on the very left. And then it's like other stats. It's a usage based stat. So I also did a couple of rate based. You have the sum next AEC, which is the hockey AEC for your entire 2025 season, and then you divide that number by the number of completions you have to get per completion, and you divide it by the number of possessions you have to get per possession. So you have the person who like had the highest hockey AEC, but then you also have the people who have the highest hockey AEC per possession and per completion, which is also an interesting number.
I think what you said about like playing with Jordan Kerr, it's like, yeah, it's going to be good, but there's also something to be said about being able to get it to your best throwers, right? Like that's what you want to be doing. Like a lot of offenses are designed to get the disc in certain players' hands at a certain rate. So like maybe you should take that into account. It's like, oh, I'm getting it to this guy at a high rate and he's doing things at a good rate. So like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This is, I mean, it's passing some initial eye tests for sure.
I
Maybe I'll
like
go
it.
back
I
to
think
the
it's
Sunday
cool.
one. And sorry, you said this, it was hockey. So these are, this
Yeah,
is
so
waiting. Sorry, go ahead.
that column is hockey AEC for every throw just combined into one number. That's like your total hockey AEC.
I
And
see.
then 2 to the right is your hockey AC per completion and your per possession.
I see. Okay, gotcha.
But I think it's per 100 completions, right?
You're right. Thank you.
And per 100 possessions, not one single possession.
Damn. So Slayton is killing it, and
He's setting up.
he's setting people up a lot. So would you expect with this? Would you expect players like Jordan Kerr or myself to have a lower hockey AEC?
I can tell you that Kerr's is pretty low.
Okay.
And one of the reasons for that is if you throw a goal, there is no hockey throw, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So Kerr's is lower, especially as like rate-based ones are a bit lower.
Yeah.
Whereas I think me and McKay and Miller, the O-line handlers lead the team. But
Yeah.
at the same time, all 3 of our play styles is that type of play style. Like we all play to like set people up in good
Distributors,
positions.
yeah.
Exactly. So
Interesting.
it's hard. We haven't totally fleshed out like, is this a stat that measures your play style, or is this a stat that measures how good you are doing those things?
And it's really interesting because mine is kind of low as well. I think I don't know. But I throw a ton of hockey assists. Like I'm like top 10 in the league in hockey assists, I think.
I don't think
so that's
it's
interesting.
Low. I don't.
It's
think
not low. You just have people with high.
To really know, but it seems pretty high to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
He's certainly high within the team.
Especially if you look at like per possession or per completion, like that's definitely on the upper end.
Oh, okay, cool. Interesting.
Which I think is, a little bit more useful because sometimes people miss games here and there, and
you
shouldn't be like you're not a worse player because you miss a game.
You didn't play.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think this is really cool. I think that's a really cool stat.
So,
whether it shows play style or whatever else it shows, but I think it's still cool.
Yeah, we came up with it last week, debating about whether we should throw it into the website or not.
As like a beta.
Yeah. I mean that's all of our metrics are all beta. So
sure, yeah, fair enough.
that's literally the whole website.
Yeah, good point. Beta to the beta though.
Yeah, exactly. And then we it's also fun. We always have been going through the process of like, what do we name these metrics? Adjusted expected contribution is something we made up. Player impact is something we just like made up. Offensive element we made up. So if you guys have any ideas, hockey AEC feels kind of long and long to me. So if you
let me
if you want like the Quinn index.
The Quindex.
I mean, I'll take that all day. Yeah, that's it. The Quindex. Oh man, you guys could do like some type of hockey term too. I think that would be good.
Yeah.
Don.
I should have looked up Don on the actual website. Guess it's not too late. Cool. So I guess Quinn, you have about 8 minutes here.
Yeah.
That, by the way, very cool. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. Shown space.
This is a random question, but do you guys use the term shown space? Does everybody use that term?
That one was not familiar to me.
We don't know.
Because I was when it came out, I don't know if you guys know Sasha Vogel, but he played at BYU and now is down in he's pretty active on Frisbee stuff in general. But he messaged me as soon as it came out, and some people asked him about it, and he was like, "You realize nobody says shown space, right?" But like I don't know, maybe we're a bubble here in Utah. I don't know, but we say shown space is like the space that's empty that you can throw out to somebody and lead them onto it when they're not moving and cutting to it. So I don't know. It's just what we came up with. Braden and I we're giving away our hand right before our game, but we're big shown space throwers. Like that's what we do. And so that's where kind of the name Shown Space came from.
I
It's
love
not
it.
a term we use, but I think if you're a Frisbee player, you understand it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. That's good. We don't want it to be. It's nice that it's intuitive.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything
All
we
right.
want to just check in on the last 5 minutes here?
I mean, this is not at all related to this website, but hope you guys have been enjoying Grant. We miss him. Is he gonna play Bravo this year?
Yep. He's on the roster.
Okay.
Yep. He's and getting healthy too. I don't know how much you guys still talk to him while he's training, but I think he's been a little injured. Oh my God, Don. The last month Grant's been dealing with some stuff, but getting healthy.
He lives pretty far from everybody, but every once in a while somebody will go up and run a track workout with him and just get cooked. So
Yeah.
I think so. What we call Grant's Grinders, I think is a workout that he got from Kendra. Actually, it's like a bunch of 200s.
yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Kendra ran track at BYU, and so we do a lot of sprint drills. It doesn't show for me, but
Cool. Well, I wish you the worst of luck tomorrow, but the best of luck.
it's going to be a good time, because the Shred Summit games, it's got to be
lit.
Best rivalries, right? I mean, every game is so good.
Yeah, and both stadiums are so epic to play in.
Yeah.
You guys are missing Selfridge tomorrow?
Yeah.
We're missing Kins, I guess, so wash, I suppose. I suppose.
Yeah. No,
We'll find out. We'll find out.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm really looking forward to playing you guys tomorrow. It's gonna be a blast. It's gonna be a blast.
Sick.
Cool.
All right. I guess I'll say goodbye for now and see you in about 24 hours.
Yeah.
cool.
Okay.
Peace.
Peace.
See ya.